Across Colorado and really everywhere, public sector tech leaders are being asked to do more with tighter resources, rising expectations, and rapidly evolving technology. At the same time, AI agents are generating a lot of buzz, promising to help in impactful ways. In this episode of CGAIT Connect, we are joined by Kateri Abeyta, Director of Information Technology at the City of Broomfield, Nikki Rosecrans, Manager of Information Security and Compliance for Arapahoe County, and Mark Pfaffinger, CIO for Larimer County, to explore what digital assistants actually mean for government leaders across Colorado, with a focus on real use, impact, good or scary, and what comes next if every public sector tech leader had their own personal digital agent. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mark, Kateri, and Nikki. And if you could each please introduce yourselves, and then we'll jump in. Mark, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Hi, Mark Pfaffinger. I'm actually the Support Services Director and CIO of Larimer County. So I kind of play two roles. I oversee all the internal service departments, human resources, finance, facilities, HR, and fleet, and the IT organization. So that gives me an interesting perspective on how these tools are being leveraged in other areas. So happy to be here. I've been at Larimer County over 26 years. I'm pretty sure, the most senior member of CGAIT. But, not bragging or anything, but something just to remember in case you see me in the halls at a conference, be very respectful.
We'll make you a pin for next time. Kateri?
Hi, thanks for having me today. My name is Kateri Abeyta. I'm the IT Director for Broomfield. Yesterday was my 9-year anniversary at Broomfield. And prior to that, I worked for City and County of Denver. I'm really excited about this topic. Our organization is embracing AI, and we are wanting to adopt it responsibly. And it's really important to me that as a leader in the organization that I am not afraid of it, and I'm embracing it and I'm trying to be a role model for the organization. So thanks for having me today.
I love it. Said Kateri. My name is Nikki Rosecrans, and I was recently promoted to Chief Information Security Officer. So it's no longer Manager of Information Security, which I'm really excited about. Aside from being the CISO for Arapahoe County, I also serve as the LASSO for the county and the HIPAA Security Officer and Digital Accessibility Program Manager. So similar to what Kateri had said, I do embrace AI. I am not afraid of it. I do want to also lead the county in adopting AI ethically, responsibly, obviously making the correct decisions from a cybersecurity standpoint, compliance standpoint. And we are the first county and state agency in Colorado to develop our own internal red testing team. So we actually have an ethical hacker inside our county who now does all of our external and internal penetration testing. I'm extremely excited to talk a little bit more about him and his agents.
That's an interesting role. We'll definitely have to pull the thread on that. Well,
Is
welcome
he a real
everyone.
person or an agent? Okay, just wanted to make sure.
That's a fair question, especially for this podcast. Well, you each wear a lot of hats, just like Aaron and I, and we can probably talk for hours about each hat and the different perspectives that hat brings to all things AI, right? In terms of context, in terms of desired value, and how we would use it responsibly. So we're just going to have to take a more narrow focus so we can get through this conversation, hopefully whole. So because this conversation has to do with this idea of AI agents, let's jump into that first question that will maybe set the groundwork for where we go from there. Do you believe that concept of AI agent as a digital partner? Is it hype? Is it real? Do you have your own digital partner already? Who wants to jump in?
I can. So I think that there's definitely hype, but underneath that, I think there is something very real. AI, we all know, is not magic, and it's certainly not going to replace leadership or judgment or accountability, as I have previously said. But I do believe that AI can be a meaningful digital partner 100%. So, from my world, cybersecurity, the public sector, leadership, and then risk management, we're constantly processing huge amounts of information. We're making decisions quickly, and we're trying to translate complex issues for different audiences, right? We have 18 different disciplines. So if AI can help me and my team synthesize information faster, challenge our assumptions, and then help us get to a stronger outcome more efficiently, that's where I think the real value comes into play for our county.
I would agree with that. I think our first priority should be making sure that that structure is in place so that we can govern this technology, the data, the security, acceptable use, all of that is, should be step one. So I get the hype too. I'm just kind of proceeding a little bit with caution. I don't want to be, I want to be able to own my decisions, and I want them to be transparent and defendable, because I think trust is very fragile. And, we are dealing with public information, and we have to be very just mindful of if we're going to use AI, where is it learning? Where is the data being stored? What's it doing with our information? Things like that. So I definitely think it'll improve our decision making. It could help us be more efficient, and maybe help a little bit with the feeling of overwhelm with just the pace of change and the incredible amount of information that we get every single day. So, but it's not magic. I think that's what you said, Nikki. It's not a replacement for people or leadership.
Yeah, I'd say I'm pretty intrigued by the idea of a digital buddy or intern that follows me around in my digital day and does activities to strengthen my ability to do my core job, which is mostly working with people, interacting in a leadership capacity. So I just see a lot of agents. I'm leveraging them probably as Aaron's doing right now, where he's recording this and he's going to use transcription tools to summarize the meeting, to draft executive communications to kind of make sure my tone's right, to help me clarify or ask me what have I done that, how could I improve things to make it meet a specific use case that I'm trying to get at. I use it quite a bit in legal reviews because I train it in things that I care about that the county tends to lean in on. Like they hate certain clauses. So why don't I just have agent find those? And so I feel like I'm proliferating more use cases, but I haven't seen a lot of opportunity yet to package that into an agent. When I even talked about the idea of, using OpenClaw in our environment, Nikki probably got hair standing up on the back of her neck. The potential security implications of that were a little bit high. So I think we're a little ways from the secure platforms that can do a lot of the digital buddies and tie together a lot of these agentic use cases, and also make it repeatable. And something like you said, Kateri, that it's kind of like having the human in the middle element of review. It's still emerging in my mind. There's a little hype around it, but the amount of times I'm using components of an automation to do my job is kind of frightening. It's really becoming a part of my day to accelerate and to be a force multiplier in the way I do my job.
Yeah, I think there is a couple things from everything you all said. Not all AI technology is ready yet, right? And humans, we're probably even less ready than even that. So there's this constant gap where we're balancing, how do we keep up or get ahead? Do we even need to, right? The other thing is that what excites me about the idea of the agents and others making it hype and making AI hype is no one really has ever been interested in anything technology, right? In the past, it was, I mean, IT, the world of IT, the world of security always has been underground, behind the scenes, not what's in front of what our business partners think about. But suddenly now it is. And so I want to make sure that we take advantage of that and that we help push it through. So that's what makes me excited about it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. So the other thing, Mark, that you had said that I took down a little note is you're right. It can do a lot of these things, right? But in using AI, it can also generate a lot of work. So all of a sudden, things that maybe were 3 lines, right, are like 3 paragraphs. And somebody sends you over 3 paragraphs, and now you have to read. So we need to make it effective. It doesn't mean that we need more information. It means we need information that discerns what's important from noise. And for this conversation, it would be interesting if we maybe come up with what are the use cases that us as leaders would benefit from, maybe in our everyday lives, personal lives, right? To
Mhm.
actually build this agent. And because it's something I haven't really figured out yet either, but maybe through this conversation we come up with 2 or 3 things, and that's also what the takeaway can be, which would be great. I recently heard that AI, like the concept of the benefits of AI and how it can be used, and you each alluded to some of this, is to augment what we currently do, right? To save time, make better decisions. And I think that's something that as leaders would be very useful, right? To look through all the information that we get, for us to teach it what's important, what to focus on, how to prioritize certain things. So again, we get through all the noise. We still need to apply that layer of actual creativity, thinking, creative problem solving, all those things. Also to re-engineer processes, right? To catch errors or to identify ways that we can do things better, faster. Like that's another way to enhance our work. And then the third way is to completely transform how we do things, right? So discovering new ways of thinking, doing things, and actually changing what used to work in the past. Maybe we don't need to use emails anymore. That would be amazing, right? I know. Uh,
You lost me there for a minute.
but yeah, what do you guys think about those types of paths of your agent if we were to make one today?
I mean, I think like our policy as human in the middle as an element, I
Mhm.
think we're still there. I think that's still important for producing meaningful, tangible products. I'd love some of the research that's happened in like the school space where they let
Mhm.
kids will produce reports just using AI. They use it to kind of use it to help augment their research, and then they won't use it at all. And after a couple of weeks, they went back and kind of quizzed them on the topics that they presented in their papers. And I could tell you the kids with used AI predominantly didn't have a clue what they wrote about. And
Mhm.
so I don't think you can replace the requirement to put some skin in the game, to have some pain in the learning process. And
Mhm.
so my hope is that we don't remove that element of the IT thought process that creates creative, empathetic,
Mhm.
and well thought out solutions that really meet the underlying needs of the organization just because the AI, vibe thing just created it for us. So I'm a little bit thinking you can't completely replace humans yet. Maybe in 10
Mhm.
years, we'll see. And we're just going to have to remind this is a tool to be used to augment our work, but not to replace the pain and the natural process of putting effort in that creates great results.
So what you're suggesting maybe is for those, anytime we learn something new, it doesn't matter if you're at the leadership level, really experienced, or starting out, don't use AI to do that work. Actually understand, get in there,
Or
know
use it
why.
to challenge your perspective. Use it to deepen your insights by telling them the kind of audiences you're communicating with. Ask it to challenge your perspectives a little bit. And that, I think, makes you a better leader when you have more perspectives, and it can be really good at that.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I would agree with Mark, adopting AI ethically, right? And especially what Mark had said, in government, trust matters. So it's important that we don't want to adopt everything because AI is the new shiny object, but we want to be intentional about how we adopt it and how we use it.
Yeah. And I think one thing that Mark was saying was that it's a tool. So it's a tool that can improve the quality of our work. It could provide those insights that the light bulb goes off around things that are going on in the organization, whatever's feeding the AI, that if there's strategies or past discussions or meeting notes about something, policies, things like that. So anything that can bring all of that information together, you get a clearer picture to help guide decisions on execution. It might bring out some pitfalls that might be developing that we should be aware of, risks that might emerge, alignment opportunities. So it's a tool.
Mm-hmm. But we don't want it to make it dumber.
Yeah, exactly. And we have years of experience
Getting dumb
in our careers that, should be the deciding factor in how we absorb the information that's coming to us. So it's just a tool. And I need to tell myself that.
I would agree with that. I kind of feel like it's a really advanced Clippy from Microsoft Word, personally. Instead of just saying, it looks like you're writing a letter, it can say about 3,000 words now. But I agree with Mark. I think that it is good. I mean, all of you as well, that it is good from an advisement standpoint. Not always good advice, often not. But it is getting closer to where it needs to be. It is better in refinement. But I do think that, for the human element, especially when it comes to those that we represent and then also our employees, we do need that mental friction, that ability to actually process things and work through things. If people vibe code, they're not going to actually really code. They're not going to know when there's really problems. So same thing with emails. I mean, yeah, it does help to cut out a lot of the noise, but then sometimes we need that noise to process, the true meat of the email. So I think it's a great sort of devil's advocate to hey, this is what I'm looking at. This is what I need to do. It works really well from that standpoint. And I appreciate that about it. And I appreciate kind of where it's going to go. I am a little nervous about the fact that we are essentially the beta testers in real time for it. But otherwise, I think it's really cool. And thinking about where it can go is really cool as well.
I just wanted to elaborate on that, Aaron. When you were talking about how it could write emails and things like that, it will never convey our personalities. And, we all know each other when we go to CGAIT conferences and we chat and things like that. And so you can tell when somebody's used AI to write an email and you lose kind of the personality of the person that wrote it. And so I hope to make sure that I am not losing that tool.
When I'm writing an email to a citizen or a resident or something around a broadband issue, I'll often use it just to do it because they don't know me and they probably never will. And it's fast. But you're right. When you're sending something to leadership or someone you're got a relationship with, it does take that personality out of it sometimes. When
you can tell that an email is written by AI from, let's say, somebody that you've worked closely with, it could be a vendor, it could be somebody in the organization, does that change your perception of that person?
I'll answer that one. I would say it depends on intent for the most part. I think that, there's a lot of things like when it's coming to sending out generalized emails or technical emails, I don't really despise that. I think it's necessary evil a lot of times. I mean, they could do a little bit more work to remove the M dashes or actually know how to use punctuation in there. But if it's actually like a personal thing, if it's a one-on-one email that I would send to, a citizen or to an employee over something that's a personal matter, then I would probably take offense to it. Yeah.
I've developed a bit of a rash, I'll let Nikki go, for the images created by AI, where I kind of just discount them. I'm like, okay, did they really put any effort in? I'd much rather get an ugly chart sometimes.
I was going to say, off to that point that Aaron had said, it's how you use it. So our keynote speaker for the upcoming CGAIT Summer Conference on day one is my very good friend and partner here at Arapahoe County with the United States Secret Service agency. All he does for them is AI. And in fact, he purchased this little 51, I think it's like millimeter computer, $3,500 computer, all AI based. And that's all. He's just learning and training and learning and training the most that he can. And he has always said, he's always texting me, Nikki, you need to try this AI tool. And I need to try this AI tool. And I'm like, hey, Jared, I'm like at $120 a month now, so I don't want to do it. I can't purchase anymore. But, always to try these tools. And he had said during one of our Mountain West Cyber Fraud Task Force, our Attorney General, Phil Weiser, was there, and he was talking about AI. And Jared had given a presentation right after Phil and had said AI is not going to replace the jobs of humans. It is going to replace the jobs of humans who know how to use it best. So he has given me all, tips and tricks of how to really utilize AI to not take on my persona, but now in my personal life, it really does know my tone. It knows kind of who I am. And so it's able to produce, I would say, better communication at something that how I would communicate. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is that as leaders, to that statement, as leaders, we have to stay on top of this.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to embrace it in the sense of not just because we need to drive it and support the organizations that in using it, but for us to gain value out of it, right? Because when we're going to be hiring, we will be looking for that same skill set, right? So would it change how you interview someone?
I don't necessarily think I would use AI in interviewing someone. I do know that listening to AM radio recently, they were talking about artificial intelligence and how these candidates are getting weeded out by AI bots at the initial stage of vetting out resumes. And so they were suggesting, some experts were suggesting during this talk show that people actually utilize AI to run their resume, obviously taking personal information out of it, running their resume through an AI tool of their choice and the job description and seeing where they align and where they're misaligned. And there was, and I can't remember the gentleman's name who was on here, but they were talking about actually they had metrics about candidates who used AI for job applications getting through the door or getting past those AI bots with using AI. So they were, in that sense, promoting it. Going back to what you said earlier, though, we're still talking about trust and with AI. And I think some leaders think that AI can do way more than it actually can. And then others think that it is dangerous and should be avoided. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? So the way past that mindset is the same way that we approach any emerging technology in cybersecurity specifically, right? We always want governance. We want education for our departments and our employees. We want guardrails and we want practical use cases. So at the county, what we have done is started small. We're learning where it works well, and we're understanding the risks and then building confidence through experience rather than assumptions, if that makes sense.
The only thing I really heard was how we're talking about a futuristic AI technology, and you were listening to it on AM radio.
Right.
And so maybe that's telling us something. Maybe this is going to not supplant everything that we're used to. Maybe it's going to be a complementary technology that we continue to operate on. I think one thing I'm personally struggling with, and maybe I'm struggling with it at a department level, is finding that experimentation time, the ability to go and practice, to try things that don't work, to fail and attempt something new. It sounds like, Nikki, you have a friend that's job is to do that. It sounds kind of fun. I don't know. And so how do I'm struggling with how I free up more time to test things that have legs versus waste time on things that don't.
Yeah, that's a great segue into a question around what are those barriers that are preventing us from truly partnering with AI in our personal lives and professional lives. And you already touched on some. What are some other barriers you're all experiencing?
Well, I think there's a level of responsible risk taking that we have to embrace and be willing to take on so that we can experiment and figure out what works and what doesn't for us, professionally, and then also thinking about how the organization can utilize it as well. So I think what Nikki was saying about starting small, the operational use cases, that you start there, figure out what are those notable efficiencies that we can create and the value that can come from those, and then just increment. But to Mark's point, we need to make space for that. And so for me, I guess at work, I'm trying to utilize AI for those specific use cases for me, that, the repetitive things that I do, and making very small slivers of time to open up to do more meaningful and engaging work. But it really is, there's that pressure, I think, to jump in with both feet as leaders into this space. And I guess it really goes back to having a structure in place to be able to operationalize it and begin to use it more in practical day-to-day work. So it's I don't think I've figured that out yet, but
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
I think we're seeing some similar barriers. It's maybe trying to take on the big solution that's going to just create the greatest ROI, and it's too complicated. There's too many security. Maybe you're trying to summarize CGIS data and HIPAA information, and you're like, okay, all the issues that go along with that kind of derail the project. The other one I think is just the availability of the right tool for the right job. We're like a Google shop. It's like Gemini for everything.
Right.
And it doesn't really work for everything. And sometimes it's a terrible model for certain use cases. And when people try it, they're like, it didn't work very well and then never going to work. We kind of heard this with public safety transcription of case notes. I think we tested it 2 years ago and it kind of sucked. And I'm like, if you test it again, these models have evolved so much over the last couple of years. You got to keep revisiting them sometimes to see if they've reached the expectations that you're looking for.
I think that is one of the biggest risks is there are so many emerging technologies, and with that emerging entrepreneurial entities that I worry will be swallowed by one another or simply disappear because a bigger platform is going to do that. And so it is difficult as any leader, but in the public sector, especially, we have such a big fiscal responsibility to quote unquote fail by making the wrong partnership. And yet, if we don't, we're not going to keep up with that gap, right? So it is I see that as a barrier in how do you make a decision around who to partner with in light of there being, for example, 20 different companies that are trying to solve the permitting problem. Or companies who, let's say, have decided to use dash cams to collect various type of data. Are you going to have vehicles with 10 dash cams? Probably not, right? So what I'm excited about that is a barrier today that I see as an opportunity is actually creating that space where, Mark, to a point you made earlier, we can experiment more of that R&D kind of place where we can help these companies develop in ways where they understand truly what we're looking for as far as value. And maybe those partnerships will yield better outcomes, right? Versus trying this, trying that. But yeah, that's just something I've been thinking of.
Just one small thing that I just thought of, which was
Mhm.
the availability to accessing the data. So I think a lot of my siloed government systems aren't very open. They don't have great APIs. They aren't built on a, REST bus engine or anything. And so to actually integrate to AI into these solutions becomes pretty challenging because they really weren't built for integrations for automation. And so I think that's going to be a bit of a barrier for a bit for us for even some of those key
Yeah.
use cases, like you said, getting access to the data, making agentic assistants that can talk to those and do things. A lot of our platforms really aren't, they're not built very well for that.
That's a great point. Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh no, I was just going to say that I think that I could probably talk an entire podcast about the various barriers, but I would say like the one I think that kind of keys into a lot of what we're talking about is, especially as somebody who uses it for testing a lot professionally and personally, is that you almost have to talk to it as much as you would talk to an employee to get it to do it correctly. And at that point, why not just use the employee? So like there's so many things where especially around scientific things where it'll flub numbers or make things up, or I've had to actually like put in statements at the bottom to tell me if it made something up, whether or where it referenced something and how it did so. And it just, you have to have a constant conversation with it to make it actually do what you want to do, even if it's a simple thing. And to Alina's point as well, with companies changing, so does that code, so does how it needs to be talked to. So it's like an ever evolving process that is right not enough of the time.
Aaron, what does it do when you tell it it's wrong?
Oh, so it apologizes because it always wants to appease the user. So,
Exactly. My bad. I'll never, yeah.
One thing that our red team, so our ethical hacker does on the weekends, he has his own network. So he's been a computer nerd, if you will, since he was a kid. He never wanted to play any sport. He wasn't like the rest of his brothers and sisters. He was always into computer and technology. And as he got older, he started to have fun in exploring ways to break a computer, then to break into a system and so forth. And he always did it ethically. He then ended up getting into bug bounty. And so he has leveraged AI tools, created his own agents. He is so brilliant in this around security guardrails, has agents who are working overnight for him in this bug bounty. And on the weekends, he's getting paid anywhere between $1,800 to $2,700 to find these vulnerabilities within systems. And he produces them reports on those vulnerabilities that were found. And then these companies pay him. So he's started his own consulting firm on the side as well. And now we are starting to talk about getting him the same tool within our GCP environment, being able to leverage those tools. We bought him separate hardware, separate network, and all of that to start doing our internal and external penetration tests. But the one thing that I am so grateful for is before this whole school breach broke out, he knew about it. And then I'm like, man. And then he was texting me last night as I'm at happy hours saying, here's the list of 9,000 schools that were compromised by Canvas. I'm like, Matt, thank gosh. He is so brilliant too, in that our internals, I have different, I would say, tentacles of partners around the county who assist me in the sheriff's office, district attorney's office, elections office, you name it. We're just I've organically grown that cyber team, if you will. And he had everyone, I know the hype is Iran. I don't know this to be 100% true, but Matt really does feel like Iran does not have the resources as the People's Republic of China and as Russian. He's like, nah, I'm not. It's going to be really hard for Iran to hack into a critical system. You're dealing with people, insider threats around the United States who are working for legitimate private sector critical infrastructure companies and working for China, working for Russia, which we just saw a report released by the FBI, just was released this week, that they were able to arrest insider threats. So it's really nice for him to know the guardrails around how to be secure when using these agents, but he is so far advanced even from where the county is.
And that's from a security perspective, it's so important and leads to a question that around being able to keep up again, right? It's this constant race. Ho- the threats that are developing are at quantum speed, right? And yet we don't have quantum technologies probably to address them. We're just trying to keep up with basic vulnerability testing and management and then doing something about the vulnerabilities. How can we keep up? I mean, you're in an interesting situation where you have this amazing person with these skill sets and you've been able to hire this person, right? And create this position. Not all agencies might have that. So, what are some other ideas for how we can keep up in the security realm, which is one of the scariest aspects, I think, of how quickly the technology is changing?
Yeah, so AI, our threat actors are already using AI, and they're using AI to deploy really sophisticated threats, whether they're exploiting vulnerabilities, right? So that's something that does help, I think, me sleep at night is knowing I have someone on my team who is already looking at our network and is already finding those vulnerabilities just as quick as our threat actors are. I think an important part too is having the right tools in place, the CrowdStrikes, the advanced email protections, and you really want to listen in onto how those organizations are adopting AI within their products. How are they keeping up with these threats that are being discovered, right? So I know CrowdStrike just had a discussion on their Mythos project last week this morning, and they're having multiple sessions for actually customers in general, but specifically for Colorado government entities who leverage the SLCGP grant. So it's really, we have to do our due diligence in vetting out how these companies are utilizing AI within their tools, asking the right questions if any of their services or solutions use artificial intelligence tools to access or process or manipulate any of Arapahoe County's data. I mean, we have a set of questionnaires that we do like our vendors to ask. But again, I really like what Kateri said when she said we have to have an appetite for risk. And it really all depends on your organization. Because remember that there's always risk, whether it's reputational, financial, organizational, you name it, there is risk within our organization. How much are we willing to accept to help keep our doors completely locked?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. We implemented abnormal AI this year. One of the benefits with a lot of the email tracking is that's where one of our biggest vulnerabilities are. So I think you should put the tools and some of these AI agents that have matured, because cyber's been doing AI for 10 years, right? So they're a little bit ahead of the game, but it's nice to have systems that can actually learn your environment, that can actually show that they're constantly adding to their models, to their databases, to their use cases. And ultimately that frees your staff up to do more of the value added work. Like it looks like Nikki's doing quite a bit.
Part of the challenge too is that we do have these tools in place, and Proofpoint, our Palos, Sophos, and they all produce so much information for our cybersecurity team that getting through all of that data is a challenge in and of itself. I mean, it's so much information, and so I guess it just goes back to how do we wade through all of that information and organize it into something that's meaningful and actionable and timely, especially for security. We can't wait on, and sometimes our tools are actually delayed in getting us information. I know Joe Howell, many of you know him. He was great about seeing something before we heard from Proofpoint about a potential vulnerability. So it goes back to just the vast amount of information and how to cull out the most important things and taking action on those.
I
And
think that's where the automated action, you need to offset, right? You can't wait for a human in the middle to make security choices. You just need to wait. You need a way maybe to back it out later, but those are spaces where the data is coming too fast and too heavy, where you just have to, change your approaches.
Yep, yep. And I think it's CrowdStrike, Kateri, correct me and Mark if I'm wrong, but I think they, within their Mythos and Project Glasswing, they're going to have the option where it has the vulnerabilities that it's identified within your environment. Click of a button, you highlight vulnerabilities, want patch, and it deploys it, kind of like a group policy. Now we're looking into bigger tools, Intune, to try to help, deploy all of our updates, our security patches. And with AI kind of set aside, though, going back to what we talked about earlier, what Mark brought up really hit on what Kateri said, what Aaron said. It's all about ethical responsibility, right? And I think it would be a disadvantage to county government and state government to take the human out of that element, because now you are separating technical versus emotionally intelligence. And it really does depend on Kateri and Mark and myself to be able to translate what we are doing with the tools that we have, that's including AI, and why we're doing it in a way that our leaders and a way that our employees understand. Every month, people know that there's always security updates that happen and you're going to have to restart your computers. It wasn't until this year that I started to say, okay, I need to craft a message every third Tuesday of the month, because every second Tuesday we deploy to IT. Third Tuesday we deploy to all the updates to production. So on the third Tuesday, well, it's Monday night of each month, I have a notification going out from our IT service desk communicating tomorrow is updates and security patches. Remember to save your work and restart your computer. You'll have 10 hours and you do the necessary steps that you have to do. It has significantly reduced the number of complaints that we have received. So I think the whole thing is, I know AI is a big hype, but we can't forget that emotionally intelligent piece that's behind it.
Mhm.
Bringing it back a little bit to, this is such incredible discussion, right? And tools are critical because they're doing so much in such little time, right? You can't have enough humans in place to do all of that kind of work. And yet there's still a lot of work. We get alerts, we get notifications from organizations like MSISAC or other news stations, other agencies. I see the opportunity for a personal AI agent, maybe at the leadership level, to go through all of that and to give us at that leadership level a very quick assessment, perhaps, of, hey, in the past hour, you received X number of these types of messages. It would be really good to follow up on these two potential risk areas, right? That could be a way to go through all of that data and have some focused reaction. Still, like you've alluded several times, Mark, you need to go back yourself, right? Because there are things that you're thinking about that your agent is not thinking. It's just doing some
Right.
steps.
Okay.
So you still want to go back. But I see that as one of the tasks I would love to create, to delegate, because I'm not able to do it today. There's just not enough time.
Yeah, not to hijack this, but I'm going to share a little story. So we have our service desk function, and this is moving away from cyber, in case you didn't notice. And people get a survey for every so many tickets they put in, and we always score 5. We're amazing. We're incredible. And I was kind of like, is that real? Like, we're only getting 5% or 7% return on those. And so I basically put a challenge out, like, how can we assess our service tickets in a way that we can make meaningful decisions on whether we should escalate discussions or really good. So we've implemented a model called VAD, VAD. We're measuring valence, which is pleasure, activation, which is how excited or calm the messaging is that the end user is sent in their service ticket, and then dominance, how powerless or lack of control they feel they have in the ticket communication. That provides us basically a score system that we apply to our service tickets using AI. that then we can put on a dashboard and review. And so from an IT leadership perspective, instead of relying on people giving me feedback, I'm simply using AI to give me an assessment of how the communication looked that they sent us. And wow, it is crazy. The kinds of things you learn about people or about how to tune these models so they're useful has been an interesting exercise that maybe should be an entire CGAIT conference discussion about our journey of implementing the VAD model on our service tickets.
So all of a sudden, your pool of responses is
Yeah, they're anywhere from, they
full.
go from irritated, worried, neutral, relieved, or grateful. And we give it a score based on that. And that's basically what the recommended use is to apply at one of those ratings. And we've just decided, if you're irritated and worried, maybe we'll take a look at that ticket. And sometimes there's just a key word that AI, like to Aaron's point, just overly gave it credence. It was like, just because they said shoot or something like that doesn't mean they're irritated. And so you do have to kind of be a little sensitive. You have to, that's the human in the middle. You use it as a potential way to escalate, but you review the content, the detail, and the relationship to the department that it's working with, because some departments are just more emotionally charged than others. And so it has to learn those kinds of tendencies.
That's context around that word shoot
Exactly.
that it wouldn't know. And that's
Well, it tries to relate it to the other words, but the models
Yeah.
are only as good as the models.
Right.
Well, I think that would be a great CGAIT session. I'm curious now, was the AI built into your ITSM or is it?
Yes, we built it in OpenAI. We built a ChatGPT model. So basically we built the prompt for it. And then we use the API integration from our service management system to send the content of the ticket to the model to give us a score back that gets applied to the ticket.
Nice.
So
I love that.
It's really pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to bring that back to the team. And that sounds like a fun challenge, right? Because you are building something internally to that's based on what's important to you
Yeah,
at,
it's our
as
values.
the organization. Yeah.
Similar
And
to
that
like
can
what Nikki
differ.
was saying, you want to only look at the security issues that you think rise to the level that it requires your attention. AI can help you point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to what something that Kateri had said, and then following off of Mark, Alina, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
but
you didn't.
she was talking about all of these advisories that come through. So were you, Alina? And I think that's where another tool comes in, is that security information event management system. And there is one vendor in particular that I was able to sit through a demonstration and blew my mind, because they are so advanced with AI in their product that it's able to ingest all of these alerts, whether it's coming from CISA, MSISA, Checkpoint, Mimecast, CrowdStrike. It ingests all of these alerts. It anomalizes them. It then kind of it goes through, sifts through to see if there is anything one alike, and if it is high enough, that's when it'll roll it up to the end user, so to our team or our systems team, in a human language, and say, hey, you have a very credible alert on your Checkpoint firewall coming in from CrowdStrike that was blocked Mimecast. You need to take a look at this. And that is like the beauty of having these tools. And that is where my part came in to communicate this to our EBC and our Board of County Commissioners last year, saying, we need this tool, because I think it was after deploying CrowdStrike, we had something like 83,000 alerts that came through within a matter of months. I can't remember the exact
Processable.
It's not processable for 4 engineers. It's just absolutely not. We need products, but products that are going to be useful. Like there are products that we were assessing on they're one of the Ground 6 technologists or technology providers. And it's unfortunate because they charge by the usage. And if, county government can't pay that, there's no way I'm going to purchase your product. We have to be able to have a hard number that we know we are going to use a year, but it also has to deliver the right results with it.
It really sounds like each of you are using the tools that are most critical and impactful right now to learn from and build on, right? And perhaps those are those tasks that if you built your own digital agent, you would start out with in building that digital agent because you understand the workflow, right? I love the idea of evaluating sentiment of emails that come to us from other leaders, from vendors, from our own staff, right? Or other peers in the organization and other agencies. It's very interesting. It just gives you a different perspective. It doesn't mean that's the sentiment, but in terms of giving you a different lens to look through, right? That would be an amazing thing an agent can do, I think. So it's interesting throughout this conversation how I love where you each went, right? In terms of challenges in the organization, tools that are working, things that you're trying, your concerns, because those are actually the things now that, again, we said we don't have digital agents, but if we did, and I feel like we're building what our digital agent would be through this conversation. I don't know what you all
Yeah,
think
it's very
about that.
job specific, right? I mean, our digital agent's going to look very different. The area that I'm seeing the biggest impact on this is in our software development team. The digital agents that basically do coding assistance has completely transformed the way we write software. I haven't seen that in my particular leadership role yet, but maybe it'll eventually transform the way I do my job to that level. But most of it's around speed, performance, the ability to write and challenge the way we write code or take a story that was done in a requirements and produce usable code from it is much faster using an Anthropic agent than we ever could do before. So we're actually getting much faster. It's challenging our ability to offset packaged applications. We're going so fast.
You know, in your role, Mark, right? Because you wear so many different hats, because for different functions, true
Mhm.
different functions of the organization. Is there a particular workflow for you where it would be helpful to have some agentic insight?
I mean, yes. I think Kateri was also nodding earlier that access to the data that maybe allows me to do agentic work, I
Mhm.
find that pretty challenging. Data governance is probably where a lot of our maturity
Yeah.
needs to be focused on over the next few years in order to get the value out of these systems. And so most of the problems I'm seeing right now is availability of integration.
Yeah.
So you would look for that. You would hope to
Yes, those
accomplish
would be
that.
those would be the low hanging fruit that might make it a little easier to trial things versus the
Mhm.
systems that are more closed.
Yeah, it really unlocks so much data that we can't get to now. I mean, some of our legacy systems that we're slowly working to modernize, there aren't um, APIs and or the database isn't accessible or so there's that challenge. And then there's also just having a solid data management strategy. That's a focus that Broomfield uh, has now. We are standing up a data analytics and AI division within IT, and I just got off a meeting. We were talking about the first few positions that we'll hire into that team, and one is an AI architect, and we were just talking about what level of integration should be a core responsibility of this person, because we do also have integration engineers, and it's different for AI and how what that integration is going to look like into legacy systems or even some of the new modern systems that are on our roadmap to implement. And then the other two really important roles behind the AI architect is data architect and a data engineer. We have to get a handle on the data that we have and how we can really start to get the most value out of the data that we have that's currently very much siloed. And so that's a main focus for us at Broomfield is how do we unlock that data and make it work for us in the best way and how we need it to.
It feels
That's,
like we
yeah.
have a topic for our next Seagate episode.
But, you
And
know, there are like,
data is
yeah,
our 4-letter word.
totally. I mean, we're a Google Enterprise shop. I think Kateri maybe also. That's great places to start for us. They've opened up AI Studio to email to doc. So I'm starting to write little agents that categorize my email as an example. I never thought about using a sentiment. I'm going to do that this afternoon and tag it with a sentiment analysis. But for instance, I have a tag that tells me if this email requires follow-up. So somehow, you know, I basically asked it to go try to determine if this email actually wants me to do something. It turns out almost all the emails I get are just information being dumped on me. And so at least it let me go and kind of target the things that maybe I could just do actions and feel like I did something today and then go deal with the other ones later. But that's just a silly example of the kinds of things you could do to change the way you approach your day-to-day job.
I don't think that's silly, though. We are inundated with exactly that. And that is where our own agent can be useful, right?
Right.
It's just, yeah.
Yep. Spending less time in the weeds, more time where
Right.
we
And
matter.
it's the silly things that we shouldn't be spending
Yeah.
time on.
Or even those little email summaries at the top. Those
Yeah.
can be really good because I get these giant things sometimes. I'm like, I don't want to read that. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't have to read that.
Well,
I
I
love it.
will be very happy with the Seagate's agenda then this year because our sole focus with AI,
Shocker.
right? Actually have, I think, quite a few sessions, maybe 4 sessions, 4 or 5, Aaron included, on our agenda. We have a Seagate board meeting later this afternoon, so we'll go over
Nice.
other work.
That's exciting. I'm looking forward to that. Thanks for all the work that's going into that. And I know it's going to be a huge success. So
And if you haven't gone to a CGAIT conference, you're missing out, people.
go. Our beautiful
If
steamboat
nothing else,
again.
just to kibitz about all the challenges of the world we live in today.
Just normalizing, connect level again.
For sure.
Stepping outside of our role, that's something that I really do value.
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, I do believe we're coming close to probably the end of our time for this conversation, which could go on forever, and I love it. And I look forward to actually continuing the conversation and diving into that data branch. And but in closing, what would you say, like bringing it back again to your digital agent? And after this conversation, Mark has already said, I'm going back and I'm adding sentiment, right, to the start of what is his agent already. And what would you do? Maybe what will you do after this episode? And could that be something that our listeners could also use as a takeaway? Nikki, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I would just say key takeaways that I want to continue to do is I want to progress in AI without sacrificing the trust, without sacrificing ethics, governance, or human accountability. Because ultimately, for me, responsible AI adoption is the goal, not only in my personal life, but over into our county, not just AI adoption, I guess, for my own sake. So I want to make sure that we are utilizing it. I want to continue to promote it. A lot of our departments are now advocates of AI. There's still going to be those people who really just are not about any technology whatsoever, and I don't want any part of it. And that's okay because we do need people like that as well. But I'm very proud of how far the county has come. And yet we still have so much further to go, right? I find it that the more I know, the more I learn, the less I know. And I think just being agnostic, staying the course, continuing to iterate, right? That iterative feedback, but continuing to iterate and educate our employees on how to use it, but giving them the freedom to use it. And it's not like we're adopting every AI tool, but getting out there in their personal lives. And this is what we would recommend. So that's my goal.
So it sounds to me like your AI agent, the first thing that maybe could bring value to you is a partner in this journey. Somebody to bounce ideas off of, maybe plan, come up with some, for messaging over the next 4 weeks, try this. So you're right. So maybe just that could be part of your agent's
Right.
workload. Okay,
Yeah.
love it.
Mhm.
Kateri?
Yeah, I think my key takeaway with AI is just being willing to explore and to try new things. At Broomfield, we have an AI community of practice. So every other Friday, my deputy director of IT, his name is Robert Belton. He leads folks from around the organization who are interested in AI and experimenting with it. And today's topic was they were diving into what a gem was, a Google Gemini gem, and how to use those tools in their day-to-day work lives. And so I think it's really just starting to build that confidence within the organization, within ourselves, that this could be very transformative in the way that we work in other areas. You know, the people part of of our roles probably won't change. I think it'll probably elevate the importance of uh, the people side of our work. But anywhere we could automate or take advantage of some of these tools to make us more effective is worth diving into and just seeing how it could help us. And maybe we find that for this particular work task, it's not helpful and it's better to go a different direction. But in others, I think we'll really uncover some real opportunities to enhance our services. So I'm excited about it. And I think a digital assistant that's plugged into how I think and also challenge me. I'm looking forward to that. It'll probably be a few years out, but we'll see how it evolves.
No, that's great. I love that every 2 weeks conversation with the organization. So maybe your agent would help you discern some key takeaways from the feedback and in different ways, right? It's one thing to, I think, be leading those discussions, right? Oftentimes you're not hearing everything that's being said and processing it. So being able to go back after and just have that additional lens for reprocessing could be very useful for you for different takeaways, maybe. I keep trying to bring it back to our personal leadership agent if you haven't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark, what about you?
Well, I think for me, it's just setting time aside, like where I can actually look at my week, what's taking up my time that's not valuable. Can an agent potentially help me free up more resources? Because my goal is really to spend more time away from my desk and away from technology, because I think that's the value I add to the organization, going to see the pain points, going to talk to the departments and how they operate and see if I can't help them see a different way of doing things. And so my goal with AI and agents is just to free up more time to not use technology, to just be a leader out in the space.
I love it. Erin, what about you?
Always kid that my next career, I want to mow lawns.
Yeah. Although, won't there be an AI bot? I don't know.
You're one hack away from that. Hey, no, I'm just kidding.
I would say for me, one thing that I mentioned before, and I do always fine tune, is because AI is a people pleaser, I make sure that it people pleases me by not being a people pleaser. And it actually does argue, and it does actually just cut to the facts. It doesn't have to sugarcoat stuff. So you should also do things like, if you are using one, see what its heuristic shortcuts are to talking to you and have it put it in there and tell you, okay, here's why I said this. Because LLMs do generate. They don't always generate from truth. They generate from what they think that you might want to hear, but don't let it do that. I think it's really good to get somebody out there who's going to advocate with you, but also advocate with you by being against you.
I think that
That's
was
really
really
great
my
advice.
job coming from a district attorney's officer. Just not respect not for our district attorneys, and I love going in like once a week, just spirited dispute. Like, I love it.
Awesome. I think that brings us to the end. Thank you all so, so very much. And looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you too for bringing these conversations forward. I think it adds a lot to our community, and we just appreciate what you're doing.
I agree. Lena and Erin and Kateri and Mark, it's always good to see you. I can't wait to see you in a
Yep.
Couple of really
Absolutely.
fast. It's scary.
See you then.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks to our amazing panel, Mark Pfaffinger, Kateri Abeyta, and Nikki Rosecrans. Our top 5 takeaways from this episode include number 1, agents are real, but they're not magic. Number 2, trust and governance matter more than ever. Number 3, data is the biggest barrier and the biggest opportunity. Number 4, start small, learn fast. And last but not least, AI should free us to be better leaders. If we use it well, AI will give us back time to think, connect, listen, and lead with empathy and intention. A bonus takeaway from this episode is the CGAIT Leadership Agent Starter Checklist. If you're interested in this practical guide for getting your first personal AI agent off the ground, simply fill out the form at cgait.colorado.gov/contact-cgait. We look forward to continuing the conversation about purpose, people, and the future of government services with our next episode. And until then, thank you for joining CGAIT Connect, the podcast for the GovTech curious. Until next time.